He does house calls for people. He goes, you know, he carries his little black bag with him.
He's in his 70s, and he's working just as hard as I am.
He is the epitome of what the Plessner Award's about.
George Jutila knew at a very young age what he wanted to do with his life.
I wanted to be a physician from age 6. I cut my foot on a glass bottle, went to the doctor, and it was sewn up, and from then on I was going to be a physician. There was no way anything was going to keep me from being a physician.
From the eastern Nevada mining town of Ely, George made his way to the University of Utah College of Medicine.
My mother and father scraped every way they could to put me through. It was about $10,000 a year, and that was a lot of money at that point in time, because my dad only made $10,000 a year. My mother made $6,000 as a teacher.
It was during medical school that George would meet and marry his wife of 51 years.
When he walked into the chromatography room where I was working, I thought, do I want to marry him? That's the first time I'd ever thought about that with anybody, so I guess it was meant to be. He'll tell you that he didn't have a chance.
I fished until she caught me.
In 1963, Dr. George Jutila, Sylvia, and their growing family left Minot, North Dakota, where George was serving in the Air Force. The goal, find a warmer location.
And we drove to California. We stopped in Sacramento.
We looked around Sacramento area. That was so ugly. I didn't want to be there.
We came up to Fortuna, all based on the physician request through the CMA.
And we camped overnight in the redwoods and woke up to this absolutely gorgeous day in September.
Came up in the most beautiful September day you'd ever want to do.
And so in 1964, Dr. Jutila joined a family practice in Fortuna.
We had 3 doctors, Dr. Olson, Dr. Goldman, and myself. It was a marriage made in heaven. I made $1,250 a month the first year. And then I gradually worked into the partnership.
George came up to Fortuna right out of his training, and he's been here and never left, you know, so we're talking on almost the order of 50 years, which is, you know, truly remarkable that somebody comes to a community, becomes a major part of the community, and stays there in the same mode of practice, you know, day after day, doing his job for that long a time. That's truly remarkable.
Fortuna would be home for the growing Jutila family. 2 children would become 5, plus an adopted daughter from Tonga.
I have wonderful kids. All 5 of them are just outstanding, and our Tongan daughter is too. They're just great kids. We couldn't have had it any better.
But the Jutila household would always be larger than the family of 8.
Some people call our house the Jutila Hotel, and so people hear that, and so they say, well, if you don't have anywhere else to go, why don't you try the Jutilas, because they'll probably put you up.
The Jutila Hotel served many foreign exchange students, but most important, it was a home for those who needed a caring hand.
I don't remember a time where we probably didn't have somebody living with us, and now, you know, Dad will bring home a homeless patient that, you know, needed to be seen and needed a place to stay. And
sometimes there's no alternative. There's no place for them to go. The next place is going to be underneath a bridge someplace. And, you know, I felt like it's worthy to give everyone a chance to be able to do the most they can. And I've been burned many times.
But you've never stopped.
No.
They're always reaching out to people, all the time. I was pretty much living on my own. Then they decided they wanted to adopt me, not formally, but they decided to adopt me, and I ended up staying with them in my high school years. Their home was a safe place for any kid to be, and what they offered was a lot of love.
And it's not just people who populate the Jutila Hotel.
All of the dogs that we've ever gotten are gifts. We've never gone out and looked for a dog, but one of George's patients died, and he had this wonderful blue heeler, and The people that were living on the place already had 3 dogs and they didn't want this one, and they said they'd have to put him to sleep, and I told George, go get the dog. So we got him, and he's just a joy.
That's the way we live. We have to keep up with those who need it.
There were lots of stories about the Jutila Hotel, and just as many about Dr. George and his 45 years in a rural practice.
You will heard lots of stories from Fortuna that he would keep patients in the hospital and drove to patients' home to feed their dogs, cats, so patient can stay in hospital. He rushed back, become a doctor again, and things like that I just did not see, never even heard of a doctor would do.
The man wears his heart on his sleeve. He is the most caring individual I've ever met in my life. He would give you the shirt off of his back. He only wants the best for his patients, and he'll spend 2 hours with them if they need it.
I know some patients would come in and he would schedule 2 hours with them and it was, the last patient of the day, and he would just sit there and listen. And I know it was a big help. I think he was quite the therapist.
And just listening was sometimes a life-saving experience.
I remember he got a call one time at 2 in the morning from a fellow who was going to commit suicide, and he talked to him for 2 hours while he was in bed and while I was awake, because I don't have the patience that he does.
How did this story end?
He didn't commit suicide, and he got some help, some psychiatric help. But I was about ready to say, go ahead. George is much more patient.
Then there were patient stories and family trips.
Quite often we'd be going on family outings, and we'd have to stop and check on some patient here or some patient there on our way before we could actually do our family thing. And occasionally we even took people with us.
He never turns anyone away, and he goes to extraordinary lengths, even to, helping people out with expenses, putting them up. He gives tons of free medical care. He's always volunteering.
He sees himself not only as a doctor, but as the more ancient definition of a doctor, which is a healer.
I did not know that doctors like him still existed until I met him.
Jesus has a run for his money.
Most everyone close to George knows about his love for technology.
He doesn't read fiction. When he goes to bed at night, he reads a book on calculus, or he reads Scientific American, or he reads a medical book, or he reads his computer books. And there is not anything more boring than computer books.
But computer books are one thing. George went after the real thing.
He brought one of the first computers that had these massive tubes and so forth, and he tried to incorporate that into medicine at that time.
Despite the fact that he's in a small town and he's not in Silicon Valley or anything like that, he was one of the first people who was talking about how computers had the opportunity to revolutionize medical practice, and I think people kind of thought he was cranky about that, but he's right.
George is a very creative individual. He's able to think outside of the box. Sometimes thinking outside of a box none of us knew existed.
Not everyone was quite as excited about his out-of-the-box thinking.
He got the first computer. It was an old IBM. What was it, a 480? I don't know. It was a really old one. It was a huge machine. And we had to rent a little house for it to live in with an air conditioner to keep it cool. It had the old tape drives, and I called it psoriasis because it was a disease, or his other mistress. And he just loved that computer and the things that it could do. It did his office billing, and it did some billing for a few other businesses in town. And
family, patients, computers. How could there be time for anything else? Well, meet George's shop.
Now this is my shop, filled with impedimenta, all kinds of stuff.
I think it's 3,000 square feet of junk. And the only clean place in the whole shop, I tell everybody, the only clean place in the whole shop is the garbage can, because he never throws anything away.
He collects cars and gas pumps and a variety of electronic equipment, and God knows what he's going to do with it.
We had a garage or shop full of stretchers that we got to play with as a kid, hospital beds, you could crank up and down. It was really fun.
His partner said one time, you're going to come home with a destroyer sometime and your wife's going to kill you. You better quit doing this. But he did have a destroyer horn.
So far, there are no airplanes in the shop to go with George's involvement in aviation as a pilot, FAA instructor, and something most folks don't know about him.
The one thing I didn't know about until this award came up was that he was involved with the Voyager. He never mentioned that to me. I've known him for many years. I sit beside him all the time at meetings, and he's so modest he never even brought it up.
Dr. Jutila served as flight surgeon for the historic, non-stop, unrefueled airplane flight around the world.
I had to do a lot of things. For example, they're going to be flying at an average of 10,500 feet. They're going over Africa at 20,000 feet. I had to worry about oxygen. I had to worry about altitude sickness. I had to worry about their water, adequate water, and adequate food.
What he did with the Voyager was actually critical to the success of it. He was in charge of all the air crew and their well-being, and it was an incredible sacrifice that he made for that project. And if it hadn't have been for his expertise, that mission would have failed very early in the program. He really sacrificed to do something very significant for aviation.
Dr. Jutila was there for the full 9 days of the flight.
I was very excited because here's a chance to climb Everest, if you will, for the first time. This is an aviation first.
Now that Dr. Jutila has climbed Everest, will he start thinking about retirement?
I retired in 2003. It's about time that he retires, right? But he looks at my to-do list and he says, I'd rather go to the office. So I don't know if he ever will. His patients say, don't you dare retire.
Even a serious surgery hasn't slowed him down.
He had a coronary bypass, 2 or 3 years ago. And, he was back in practice in a couple of weeks. I mean, it's just like probably not the wisest thing in the world, but you can't get him to slow down.
Dr. George Jutila is the 2009 winner of the Plessner Award for being California's best country doctor.
When I told him that he'd won the award, he said, I really don't deserve it. I said, George, I can't think of anybody else who deserves it more.
And everyone agrees.
He really cares about others before himself.
George is a humanitarian. When he took the oath to be a doctor, he meant it.
George is such a wonderful man. He can't be but wonderful if you live with him. And so he's taught me a lot about kindness and goodness and generosity. He's like my dad. My dad was just like that. He'd give away his last nickel if he had it.
All of us are in awe and admiration of what he has done. An energy level that I would wish I could emulate.
He's a wonderful, loving person, and I'm really, truly grateful for everything he does. He's the best dad in the world.
It's really nice that he's getting recognized. I think he's a very deserving person. And I was just really pleased. I thought, oh, finally, someone has noticed what I've seen all my life. All his hard work is not for naught.